Welcome to what is most certainly the specialist of all Shamedowns. This is Cinema Shame, and every once in a while we take it upon ourselves to watch a really lot of movies. A really lot? Yeah, I said really lot. It doesn't matter.
A mutual amount.
A Googleplex of movies.
Yeah.
A plethora of movies from a single year, righting all of our cinematic wrongs and trying to round out the year in question. Today we're talking about 1965. And I say this is the most specialist because we've been watching movies from 1965 since March. It's just the way it happened. It wasn't decided.
Yeah. I think I'm just, life got in the way of this one for some reason.
Yeah, looking back when I was taking my notes, I couldn't even say why it took us so long to record this episode. All I know is that I watched my first one for 1965, I think just after my family got back from spring break trip. And funnily enough, that movie is going to be my play it again at the end of this episode. So like we always do, we have a certain set number of categories. We fill those categories with movies we watched, and then we talk about them and hopefully keep this under 2 hours. It never happens, but we like to think that.
I think we have a good chance with this one just because in some cases it's been 4 or 5 months since we watched these movies. So like even with detailed notes, our recall isn't going to be quite what it should be compared to other episodes in the past.
Yeah, this is the fill-in-the-blank episode of Cinema Shame. And you'll be providing the blanks, not us. We will be talking about the movies, and you can feel free to say, well, that's not what happened at all, and our excuse was, well, it was a long time ago. But first, we have some very important details to take care of, and that is everyone's favorite category, what the hell happened in 1965, because I wasn't there.
Yeah, neither was I.
Someone might be, and that's nice. But for those of you that weren't, I have a few like cheat sheet notable events. This one actually applies to you, Allan. You ready?
Okay.
The current flag of Canada was chosen by an act of Canadian Parliament, replacing the old Canadian red ensign banner.
Yep.
And that's the maple leaf. I do not know what the red ensign banner was, though.
Most Canadians wouldn't be able to tell you either, including me. I have no idea what that flag looks like.
I can't even flash up a card for anyone listening at home. You'll have to do the search on your own.
Yeah.
When I was going through all of the notable events, the one thing that was common was this was the first year of the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. So the first U.S. troops with combat mission are sent to Vietnam in 1965. And then 75% of the events that were on my list that I found were all about Vietnam. This is the only one I will talk about because I don't want to dwell on the negative. That said, my next event is Malcolm X is assassinated in the Audubon Ballroom in New York City by members of the Nation of Islam. Martin Luther King leads the Civil Rights March from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. You can watch a movie on that. Mm-hmm. Fill in those blanks. This one you're going to be fond of, Allan. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The Astrodome opens on April 4th. That is home to the Houston Astros at the time. Well, they originally the Colt 45s, but they changed their name because of the Astrodome.
As made famous by the classic movie The Bad News Bears in Breaking Training.
Exactly so. Yeah, it is the first indoor baseball game ever played. And do you know who won that game?
Not a clue.
The Astros beat the Yankees 2-1.
Okay.
In another event that has been immortalized in cinema, Bob Dylan goes electric at the Newport Film Festival.
Folk Festival.
The Folk Festival, not the Fuck Festival. And also you can watch A Complete Unknown for details about how that went down. I don't think there's a movie about this next event, but Pope Paul VI visits New York, becoming the first pope to visit the U.S. I don't think that's been filmed.
It's kind of
there may not have been much drama. I didn't.
That. Yeah.
I was surprised when I read that. I mean, it's not really an exciting piece of news, but I was like, really? No Pope had visited the U.S. until 1965?
Was it sort of like, well, they elected a Catholic president and then they killed him, so maybe it's time I finally come to the States?
Yeah, you think he went to see Lyndon Johnson? I have my doubts. And finally, on December 9th, can you guess what happened on December 9th, 1965?
No.
CBS aired the first primetime Peanut special, The Charlie Brown Christmas.
Okay. Still, probably, it's my favorite Christmas album of all time.
Snow time, winter time, Christmas time. The time of sugar plums, Santa Claus, and at last those lovable children from Peanuts. Enjoy a Charlie Brown Christmas. Meet Charlie Brown, Schroeder and Beethoven, Lucy, and that impudent hound, Snoopy.
That's terrible, Charlie Brown!
Here comes Charlie Brown now. Listen.
Thanks for the Christmas card you sent me, Violet. I didn't send you a Christmas card, Charlie Brown. Don't you know sarcasm when you hear it?
Be here as your favorite comic strip comes to life. This year, enjoy a Charlie Brown Christmas.
Yeah. And that may be the best news that I had for you from 1965.
It's funny because I realized literally 15 minutes before we were set to record that I had completely... It's funny, like we spent months and months working on this episode, and I completely forgot to put together my top 5 of the year list. And it's funny, like, seeing them all in a row. And my conclusion for 1965 was, this is why Pictures at a Revolution happened. Like, this is a bad year at the movies. They're like my top 5 are all movies I really like.
Are you jumping the gun down? Because we haven't talked about the number one song of 1965 yet.
I just want to, they're all movies I really like, but none of them I would actually call good. And I think that's basically and that's not like, I watched 2 movies for this that I will talk about that would be in my post Shamedown watch top 5.
Well,
but because I had to do my pre.
So that's a pretty good episode for you. You get 2, but I mean, it might be might just speak to the strength of the original list.
Yeah. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But yeah, we can get to the song of what's the top song of 1965.
Do you have a guess as to the top song of 1965? Artist first. I bet you can guess the artist.
The Beatles.
Yes. What's the song?
Is it the title of one of the movies in my top 5 of 1965?
It's also not the title of one of the movies in my top 5 for 1965.
Help! I need someone.
It's "I Feel Fine" was the number 1 song on the top 100 Billboard chart, which I was totally underwhelmed by.
Yeah.
I read the list wrong. I just erased that whole section. Just forget I said anything.
I've already forgotten.
Good. Because that was just the list that came out. Why are you doing this to me, Billboard? Why would you do that? Yeah, again, I'm just getting fake lists. What is this? Fuck Billboard. Here's the Rolling Stones list of the best songs of 1965, and number 1 is a song that came out in 1964. So just fuck everything. It's "You've Lost That Love and Feeling" by the Righteous Brothers.
I can't say anything because My Play It Again, Sam is a movie that I just found out technically came out in December or middle of December of 1964. So My Play It Again, Sam is not even technically in 1965.
It's the "You've Lost That Love and Feeling" of the Shamedown. Rolling Stones number 2 did come out in 1965, so I think we're just going to go with "Wooly Bully" by Sam, the Sham, and the Pharaohs.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And now we can get to our top 5. And the top 5 was like a top 2 with a whole lot of movies I like that wouldn't have made any other list. That's the way I felt about this list.
That's my post-watch list. My pre-watch list is pretty much 5 movies I really enjoy, but if somebody were to try to get me to justify them being on a top 5 list, I couldn't do it.
It's possible that my Play It Again could slide in here, but it needs another viewing and time to simmer. And again, I remember to put them in reverse order. So I'm just going to go first since I'm doing a lot of stupid talking. My number 5 is a little movie called Rapture. Not The Rapture, Allan. Just Rapture, directed by John Guillermin. This is a melodrama starring Patricia Gozzi and Dean Stockwell. We'll call it a March-June romance. I'm not really sure how to apply the month label to a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old relationship. So I scribbled down some notes as I was coming with this. I said it's a sordid, beautiful, and beguiling affair between a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old who is both father and lover. It's shot by Marcel Grignon, the man who shot Shaft in Africa. Now, it really is beautifully shot. It's one of the most gorgeous films I've seen of any time period. But it's black and white, and it's one of those little gems I came across a few years ago that was released by Twilight Time, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And it really stuck with me after my first watch. I've gone back to it twice since, just putting it on. It's a short film, and I think what's most surprising is how hunky Dean Stockwell is in 1965.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't starring in a bunch of stuff around this time. Like his career kind of kicked off like more in the 70s after his child career sort of.
Yeah, it was certainly, I've seen him in other stuff around the same time period. Each time I'm kind of surprised when he pops up there because it's still not, I'm not used to like what's essentially baby Dean Stockwell.
Yeah.
My number 4 is that Mario Bava classic, Planet of the Vampires.
My issue with that movie is it's one of his most gorgeous movies, but I just find it really slow.
It's one of his most gorgeous movies. That's like that's it. And the sets, the costumes, like, everything about it is luscious.
Yeah.
We'll say horror settings.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to be talking about an Orson Welles movie later on, and actually watching that movie made me think that Orson Welles and Mario Bava had a lot more in common than I think people would actually think.
That's an interesting thought. Stay tuned for that at the end of this episode. Actually, it's in the middle of this episode. Let's say at the end.
Yeah.
And this is when my next one, number 3, is when I start getting to the movies that I have quite a bit of affection for. This is 10th Victim, directed by Elio Petri. It's Running Man with a lot of 1960s style. Actually, it's more like Hunger Games or... I don't know. It's the same idea in that it's a televised sport of murder. And this is assassins being pitted against each other one by one until there's one left. And it's kind of hard to explain the influence that a movie that nobody's heard of has had.
Yeah.
But half of Austin Powers comes from 10th Victim.
Yeah, like the breast shooting, the machine gun breasts and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's Ursula Andress and Marcello Mastroianni. It's the epitome of their collective coolness. And I like it. To me, it's the best of all of the hunting for sport and that's televised movies. And Running Man has kind of brought up this conversation again. And I mean, Running Man is fine, and the original Running Man is fine, but I'll always, prefer something that looks like this, which is mod and gorgeous, and everyone's wearing the ideal costume, and Marcello reads comic books because that's the height of civilization.
That's probably my favorite moment in the movie, is when his all his like furniture is being repossessed, and his girlfriend is upset because they're taking his comic books away, and like, those are all of our classics.
Yeah. Number 2, may have mentioned earlier, it's Help! ! Directed by Richard Lester. It's just fun. It's exactly what you want the Beatles to do, and I'm not saying that other Beatles outings also weren't fun, but this is the one that I watch the most often. This is the one that I go back to. It's got I prefer the soundtrack. I prefer the Manic Pixie Beatles.
I won't push back now, because when I bring it up in my top 5, I'll explain why it isn't my favorite.
And my number 1 was featured on what I believe was 2 Shamley Awards ago. It was one of my favorite films of the year, and I'm pretty sure I gave it my favorite actor award. I should have gone back. That would have been a good note. But that movie is Yo-Yo by Pierre Itax. Wes Anderson by way of Jacques Tati. It's the opening of it is largely silent. It's about the comedic fall from idle inherited wealth that plays out through 2 generations. The original aristocrat loses his wealth and becomes a circus performer, and then the son is going about reclaiming some of his past. And even though it like face value, it's has these very elaborately staged comedic set pieces and small little beautiful moments that are kind of along the lines of the aforementioned Jacques Tati, but it's just a really sweet story about fathers and sons and what wealth really is, if not money. It's beautifully shot, and just immediately upon watching it, it became number 1 easily for my 1965.
Yeah, for my top 5, my list starts with my number 5, which, and I swear I'm not trolling James here, because I know he literally just watched this movie and he really didn't seem to like it. But it's a movie I saw at a very young age. It made me fall in love with Jane Fonda. It's pretty much, if you explain why I try to explain why I don't like Westerns, it's because when I watch a Western, my first early exposure that I really loved was Cat Ballou. And so I get disappointed when a Western isn't Cat Ballou, which is it's a comedy.
It's really all of the Westerns aren't Cat Ballou.
But it's a comedy. I think it's probably the 3rd sexiest that Jane Fonda has ever been, which is a very high bar. It's part musical, which is always
Barbarella
make me happy.
And
Spirits of the Dead.
Okay.
And also, like, Lee Marvin, I feel, deserved his Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, playing, like, sort of the drunk gunfighter and his evil brother who had his nose bitten off. I think it's a delightful movie. Maybe James was in a bad mood when he watched it, or we just have a very different idea of what a Western should be.
I think that's part of it, but the singing troubadour chorus really rubbed me the wrong way.
James just said he hates Nat King Cole, everyone. So
I hated it. I hated what they made Nat King Cole do.
Roast his chestnuts on an open fire over that one. So my number 4 is probably it's probably tied for the one I can justify the least. But as I'm like desperately with 15 minutes before I have to record, trying to find movies to put on this list, I put on my favorite Elvis Presley movie from 1965, which I think is probably his like one of the most obscure ones because I never heard of it until
I feel Tickle Me coming on. Tickle Me's coming on.
It's Tickle Me. It's Tickle Me, which is basically Elvis meets Scooby-Doo. But it's Elvis meets Scooby-Doo, where he works at a fat farm where none of the women are actually fat. They're all gorgeous models, including Jocelyn Lane, who she didn't do much after this, but it's one of those ones where you see one movie with her and you never forget. Jocelyn Lane. So it's definitely one. It's it's exactly like what I said. It's like he plays this singer who gets hired at this fat farm, and he ends up going to this a ghost town and into this building. I can't even remember why. I think they're searching for lost treasure or something. Like Jocelyn Lane, her dad or something, had treasure and they're trying to find it. But it turns out these mobs.
A gun to my head and I wouldn't be able to come up with an inciting incident for that movie.
But so it turns out that mobsters are also searching for that treasure, or maybe if it's mobsters, it's probably stolen, heist loot or something. And the way they try to scare them off is by posing as ghosts. And that, so it truly is Elvis and Scooby-Doo, which I found really delightful. I think it's probably his most underrated movie. But it's not good. It's an Elvis Presley movie. So even the good ones are Elvis Presley movies.
And I don't think this is embarrassing to admit, but I considered it for number 5 too. So.
Number 3 is Help. That's I really like Help, but I just think that A Hard Day's Night, which is so revolutionary and
it's
so
the better
important.
movie. It's the better movie.
Okay, and I think that, it's just a movie that I watch over and again. Whereas Help, I'll rewatch it every now and then, but nowhere near to the degree that I've seen A Hard Day's Night. And then my number 2 is tied with Tickle Me for one I can justify the least, and it's the one with the Supremes theme song, and that's Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, which is really AIP at its most AIP.
One finger points to Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine. Vincent Price as Dr. Goldfoot is the man to watch. And Secret Agent 00.5, Frankie Avalon, is watching him.
Hello, darling.
Dwayne Hickman is too happy with Susan Hart to care that she isn't human.
Did you miss me, precious?
While Jack Mulaney uncovers the undercover man. All of which special guest star Fred Clark just doesn't believe. You're nuts! But watch out for Dr. G. Fun on the run. Wild, weird, wacky. Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine.
But if I'm being honest, it's because Jim Nicholson, his wife is in it. Oh, and I'm blanking on her name, but she is very much a reason to watch any movie. She wasn't in a lot of them, but you can tell that she could have gone on to bigger and better things if she just hadn't been married to producer and and decided that would be her way to go in life. It's very much a dumb movie. Vincent Price plays an evil scientist who invents these robot bombs, sexy girls who will have sex with a person and then they'll blow up, and so he sends them out after the leaders of the world so he can take over the world, and he's stopped by Frankie Avalon and Fabian, so that tells you
when you put it like that.
Or is it Frankie Avalon and Dwayne Hickman? Fabian might be in the sequel, Dr. Goldfoot the Girl Bombs, which is genuinely terrible.
You don't need to watch it. We're not even saying it's good, terrible. It's just boring.
Yeah, it's one of the only. Well, it's because it's also by Mario Bava. Yeah. But unlike Planet of the Vampires, it's not stylish and it's really bad and boring. And then my number 1, I have to put a Russ Meyer at number 1, and that's Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, which I think is for that kind of movie is as perfect as that kind of movie.
It's exactly what it wants to be.
Yeah. And now we'll get to Orson Welles, our shared shame. and we both watched.
Don't we talk about what we're not going to talk about?
Oh well, I think aren't we both not going to talk about How to Murder Your Wife? I feel like that seems to be the.
I was going to spin it a little bit because you jumped in with How to Murder Your Wife, and I said I could also talk about how I wasn't going to talk about How to Murder Your Wife, but I could spin it into not talking about Marriage on the Rocks to get the whole 1965 really hates women angle.
Yeah. Yeah, How to Murder Your Wife is actually, until the final court scene, I wasn't really too mad at it. Like, I think it's George Axelrod is the filmmaker. He wrote like
Richard
Lord Lovedock. Richard Quine. Okay, you're right. Because it's a screenwriter I like, but like it's basically Jack Lemmon plays this cartoonist who in order to draw his like very lifelike and realistic like crime scenes in his detective strip, he actually like shoots them with photography himself. And then he goes to this bachelor party and he ends up marrying the stripper, who's this Italian beauty contestant who basically got stranded in the States when the beauty contest folded. And so he gets drunk and he wakes up and... Yeah, Verna Lisi, who is gorgeous. Like gorgeous. If there's a reason to watch the movie, she's it. I
also think Terry Thomas is fun. Like, there's fun things about the movie taken as isolated elements.
Yeah, but then he marries her. He marries her after getting drunk and Terry Thomas wants to leave because his whole thing is he won't work for a married man. He's a misogynist and he hates women and he only wants to work with a bachelor. And then so eventually he comes up with this idea where he starts fantasizing. As the marriage goes on, he actually is enjoying himself. He is having a good time, but the problem is it's ruining his strip because he can't make things up. He can only write what he knows. So it goes from being like a detective noir to being about a guy who is like married to a newlywed guy. And people don't like it, and it's going down, and he starts resenting the marriage because of it, and he starts fantasizing about killing his wife, and because he can't make anything up, he reenacts what he would do if he were to kill her. But then just when he does this, she decides to leave and disappears, and so everyone thinks he really killed his wife. And so you end up this court sequence where he's tried for murder, and he ends up getting off by convincing the all-male jury that sometimes your wife just needs to get killed.
Yeah,
and I wish I could say it was played for satire, but it's not. If it is, the satire just falls flat.
And that's the thing that's so like that just kind of messes with your head because I think it's intended to be satire, but it's so unfortunately executed that it's hard to believe that the filmmakers didn't actually believe this.
Yeah.
Like, artistically, they may have consciously decided it was satire, but that doesn't mean they didn't also mean what they said.
Yeah.
And, the Jack Lemmon casting does undermine the perhaps evil in their message, but again you're left with this like split evaluation where if you squint, yes, but the final musical number where he's danced out of the courtroom and celebrated as a hero just doesn't feel like the way you would punctuate satire.
No, it
maybe
feels like
I have different ideas. I'm not sure.
No, with a good satire, you would be feeling, oh, a bad thing really happened here, but it's really funny the way it played out. And in this, no, you're meant to feel like, oh, I think it's partly because we know he didn't kill her. But at the same time, like, if this is why he gets off on this crime, it's a bad reason for him to get off, and it doesn't feel good. You don't feel happy that he got off and, like, figured it out. Like, it's like, oh, no, you should have gone to jail for that speech.
And some of it is also just the way women are portrayed. Now,
Yeah.
the wife of his lawyer friend is made to be unbearable. But at the same time, he's perhaps even worse as a human than she is.
Yeah.
And when Jack Lemmon gets married to Verna Lisi, she turns into this caricature of like Italian stereotype and at the same time like really bad Midwestern housewife merged together. They cease to be anything more than ideas, and that can work, but in this instance it just made the whole I hate women aspect a little bit more prominent. And that's why I'm going to seg into talking about I just
wanted to point out that one positive thing I can say about this movie is that one of the reasons why my Play It Again, Sam, why I liked it as much as I did is specifically because Jack Lemmon wasn't in that movie and instead made How to Murder Your Wife.
Mm-hmm. And to continue my perfect segue that was interrupted by other thoughts, I'm not talking about Marriage on the Rocks, directed by Jack Donahue, starring Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Deborah Kerr. I'm not talking about it because I'm also not talking about the other movie we just talked about, or didn't talk about. It gets confusing in my head. But the biggest problem with this movie is the script, but also don't sell Frank Sinatra's indifference short here. This is not an interesting role for Frank Sinatra, because Frank Sinatra's entire purpose is to pretend that Deborah Kerr is not attractive or interesting. The movie is about how the two of them have drifted apart, and Deborah Kerr thinks that the playboy Dean Martin is a better match, and Frank's like, oh, marriage stinks. So there's this mix-up in Mexico, which
is a better title, by the way.
Oh yeah. Then Marriage on the Rocks. I mean, it works with the Dean Martin. I don't know, whatever. I also wrote like Mexican Misunderstanding, and I kind of thought that felt more racist. I'm not sure about that line, but anyway, so it does appear that they've gotten a divorce, and then Deborah Kerr has married Dean Martin, and then Frank Sinatra enjoys being pretends to enjoy being a bachelor to make Deborah Kerr jealous, and Dean Martin hates every moment about being married. And again, I go back to they make Deborah Kerr into some sort of really naggy shrew.
Yeah.
Which on one side, one part is a crime in and of itself, but then at the same time, you're like, okay, I get why she's a naggy shrew, because Frank Sinatra, they have their anniversary, and she's throwing herself at him in bed, and he's like, "What am I supposed to do with boobs?" Like, he just pretends like sex is such a ridiculous idea. I'm like, movie. It's fun watching Dean Martin audition secretaries, and they're all bimbo floozies, and we've got some of this Matt Helm action, and they're playing up the Dean Martin like stereotypical on-screen persona,
which we're going to be talking about a lot like near the end of this episode.
Yeah, and all that could work to a certain point. Like, all of this nonsense, like the farce angle, the way that the narrative plays out in extra 30 minutes because no one will tell each other the truth. Like, my favorite catalyst for extra shenanigans is just not telling people what would solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But then again, at the end, we punish the woman who had very little to do with it. She only has some agency in telling a little lie to get her husband to pay attention to her and maybe give her some extra shenanigans in bed. Like, she's basically forced to come back and kiss the Frank Sinatra ring and apologize for everything that's happened when he's the one that's fucking at fault. Like, that's why I said my end of my notes for this section. 1965 really hated marriage. It also really hated women.
Okay, so now we can talk about Chimes at Midnight.
Now we can talk about Chimes at Midnight.
Where is the Prince of Wales?
We do not know, my lord.
Inquire at London amongst the taverns, for there they say he daily doth frequent, with unrestrained loose companions.
Oh, bastard son of a king.
That villainous, abominable misleader of youth!
Sweet Jack Falstaff, kind Jack Falstaff, true Jack Falstaff, valiant Jack Falstaff.
Thou art going to the wars, and whether I shall ever see thee again or not, there's nobody cares.
Which is funny because I don't think we have too much to say about it. I like, as I mentioned earlier, like, sort of, it made me think about Mario Bava, just as, like, Wells, I think people sort of, I don't think we talk about enough, like, his ability to wring a lot out of almost zero money. Like, he made these movies on, like, almost non-existent budgets with, you know, very little resources, and they look as good as anything, like, you could expect to see come out of Hollywood. And it makes you, like, sort of feel sad that, you know, he didn't get, you know, more than Citizen Kane and really The Magnificent Ambersons, and then basically worked in sort of lower budget B movies after that, because, like, what he could do, like, with the camera, like, he was really truly a magician in that he understood how to, you know, create an illusion on screen with just the simplest elements. And I think Chimes at Midnight, which is basically him compiling a bunch of different Shakespeare plays that feature the character John Falstaff, and have him be basically the central character as everything revolves around him. Like, it really looks as good as any, like, bigger budgeted Shakespeare adaptation. I just think where it kind of fell short for me is that I really was only familiar with one of the plays, Henry V, because I've seen the Kenneth Branagh movie. So not really knowing what happens in the other plays, it sort of felt like there wasn't much plot or drama. Like, things just seemed to happen as opposed to be part of a narrative. Like, at a certain point, like, it famously ends with Henry, like, basically disavowing himself and like pushing, like, distancing himself from Falstaff, who was, like, a man who really, like, was an important part of his life. And in like, I'm sure if I knew, like, more about the plays, and that would resonate a lot more with me. But in this case, I'm sort of like, I'm not exactly sure why this is happening.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and my perspective is slightly different here. I took 3 semesters of Shakespeare in college, and I had this beaten into me over the course of a year and a half. What my experience was watching this, and this was definitely a cinema shame, like, letter of the law for me.
Yeah.
Considering how much time I've spent reading and watching adaptations of Shakespeare. It took me 30 minutes to really find the rhythm of the film, and I think that's true whenever I dive back into Shakespeare. When I do, I like to do, like, heaping helpings, and I'll go through a few movies at a time, because there is a barrier to just popping one on and having a sit down. It takes, that's what I'm saying, 30 minutes is like the time I give myself to get back into the dialogue and the way that it's written and spoken.
Well, is it all Shakespeare? Because I think I felt like some of it had to have been written by Wells to sort of bridge gaps.
Yes, no, there's gaps being bridged, and what's remarkable, I thought, watching Chimes at Midnight, is it's been a few years, but I picked out I've never read Merry Wives of Windsor. Who has? But
Yeah.
that's another one that's in there. And so I was able to pick out most of the sections that I knew from the more recognizable plays.
Yeah.
But Wells's dialogue is what bridges the famous scenes that he brings in from Henry IV and Richard II and Henry V.
Like I almost feel like my primer for this was the first season of Blackadder.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of what I felt watching this was that it felt like it could have been an actual production written by Shakespeare. Like, it is written, performed as one would an original Shakespeare play. And there's nothing tongue-in-cheek. Wells doesn't step out from the character to do anything especially notable. He is Falstaff, who is notoriously like sort of comic relief.
Yeah.
In these plays, he's a buffoon, and he's always been played as a buffoon.
He was for the cheap seats.
Where this sits, though, is that even if you're not into the Shakespeare, and even if you can't pick out Romeo and Juliet from Henry IV, like none of it matters to you. It's all the same gobbledygook. There's still a face value appreciation for just watching what happens on screen, and some of the ways that Wells uses the camera is meant to recall the stage production. And the camera is often low and looking up at performers as they would on stage, and that's jarring at first. I think some of the angles can be like, well, that's an unusual way to shoot that. But again, he's not being showy with the camera. He's being showy with the settings. He's being showy with light and editing, and it's really kind of one of those things you'd call like pure cinema, like watching what Wells does here. And he reported that he spent $800,000 on this movie, but Jess Franco, who worked as an assistant director and shot the battle scene with Wells, they had a falling out, and he didn't get credit on the film because Wells is a petty bitch. Says that they were always fighting over budget, and there's no way that movie costs what he says it costs. So
Wells's work always involved a lot of very creative accounting.
So, you can take whether that's interesting or not. But this was something that if I had more time, I would have loved to listen to the historian commentaries and dig into some of the production, because it's not a movie that I was exposed to. And, I picked up the Criterion when it came out because I knew that it was something that I needed to see, especially considered my affection for Shakespeare. But I think it slots into some of the best adaptations of the work, even if you can't consider it actual Shakespeare. But it really sits among the best of those, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, but I just felt like the one issue I had is just it didn't. Like, I felt like it was one of those things. It was sort of like watching a Marvel movie, like, that had spliced together from other Marvel movies, and that movie expected you to know, like, what happened in those other Marvel movies that you aren't seeing.
And I do some of that is true. I do, as I said, I think someone who has working knowledge of the primary plays that it's borrowing from would have a distinct advantage going into the film than someone who doesn't.
Yeah. But I will say I think Wells's performance is as good as his direction. I think
Yeah.
he really, like, he takes this character who is, like you said, usually portrayed as a buffoon, and really gives a heart and soul to him. And you really sort of, like, start to understand him. And so that, like, as much as I didn't understand the motives for the end, like, I still felt it. Like, I still felt, like, the rejection and, like, the, you know, him being, like, if he was just a silly character, I don't think that would have hit as hard as it did.
Yeah, and that Wells, there's some parallels that you could draw between
100%.
Wells himself and Falstaff. You can see why he brought him to the foreground in this story, and because of my opinion of, like, how I think of Falstaff in the other plays, that's what brings out the central themes too. Is like this betrayal of friendship is at the heart of this whole film. So you start by being generally annoyed with Falstaff for just being himself, and by the end of the film, you're really empathizing with the character, and it is a little heartbreaking to see how he is cast aside and disavowed, even though he has been such an influential part of his life.
Yeah.
And it was a notorious flop when it came out. Like, it was buried because it was so unpopular. I wish I had written it down, but I found Bosley Crowther's review, and since Bosley Crowther hated everything, when it was notable that he didn't like a movie, he really didn't like a movie.
Yeah.
Called it a confusing patchwork of scenes, and didn't think Falstaff should be the center of any film. Called him a street corner Santa Claus.
That's not unfair.
Bosley Crowther was usually not unfair, just crotchety. He's like, if we're talking about street corner Santa Clauses, I mean, he's the Grinch.
Yeah. Well, speaking of patches, like that segue?
Perfect.
You like that segue? Okay.
Good Lord. Carry on.
So, for my highest shame, I pulled an audible at the last minute yesterday, because I was going to finish up my Shamedown watch with Roman Polanski's Repulsion. But I just, as I sat down, I just like, do I want to spend 140 minutes watching Catherine Deneuve, go crazy and evolve into madness? And I was like, nope. So what do I want to watch instead? And I just looked at a list of films from 1965 and realized I hadn't seen Sidney Poitier's A Patch of Blue. And this is going to be one where I may get teary-eyed because...
Oh, yeah, this is cross that off your bingo cards, kids.
Patch of Blue is destined to be talked about wherever motion pictures are discussed.
You're safe now. Don't cry.
A Patch of Blue introduces an exciting new star, Elizabeth Hartman, in the sensitive, glowing story of a blind girl's discovery of a world she has never before known.
Here. I brought you a present. Take it. Put them on.
It's glasses.
Not quite. They're sunglasses. They're just as I thought.
What?
Now you're a very pretty girl.
Oh, you pulled my leg.
No, I mean it.
This is also the story of a young man who helps her, a refreshing characterization by Sidney Poitier, with all the warmth and humor of his Academy Award performance in Lilies of the Field.
I really, really, really love this movie. The only reason why it's not my play it again, Sam, is because I would have to find another highest. And I didn't want to do that. So I think this has happened to you in the past.
This is Alan's favorite category, by the way. He hates watching the movie he's supposed to watch.
Yeah, it is. I think if you haven't seen this movie, you absolutely should. It's kind of a perfect example of what this kind of movie should be. It's about this Elizabeth Hartman, and for some reason, like my entire life, I thought this role was played by Sandy Dennis. So as I start watching this and see that it's not Sandy Dennis, I had a bit of
waiting
confusion.
For Sandy Dennis to show up.
yeah. Well,
that's a weird purgatory.
The blind girl was already there, and I knew she played the blind girl, and I knew that wasn't her. So I was like, oh, that must be Elizabeth Hartman. And she plays this blind girl who's 18, and in a really truly abusive home. Like her mom is like a former sex worker who works at a hotel who actually wants to go back into sex work, and her drunken grandfather, because she's blind, they never took her to school, so she's illiterate, and basically all she does during the day is she makes these beaded necklaces, and because she can't go anywhere, like she's basically a prisoner in their small apartment. But then she finally manages to convince the man who gives her the beads to make the necklaces to take her to the park, and then she has such a great time that she begs to do it again, and her grandfather takes her, and there she meets Sidney Poitier, who's this young black man with I'm not kind of sure what job he was. It's kind of seemed like it might be journalism or I don't know, publishing or something. I couldn't figure that out. But he strikes up this friendship with her, and over the course of the movie, they come to fall in love, and it's because it's like an interracial romance, but because like she literally doesn't know he's black, it almost doesn't even feel like it. Like it's brought up and it comes up, but it doesn't feel like that's the sole point of the movie. It's also just really about, two people who need each other, finding each other, and them basically helping them like move on in their lives. And the reason to see this is absolutely Hartman, who is just heartbreaking in this role. And I am so grateful this was made in 1965, because I feel like if this was made in like 1975 or 1995 or now, like she would have gotten killed by Shelley Winters' character. Like she would have died. Like she would have had a truly tragic ending. Whereas this movie, like, just it manages to give us that perfect, like, bittersweet ending that that sort of, it feels right, it feels true, but also feels like maybe possibly good things could happen in the future, like that this isn't just a disaster, like that, this is not a life lesson, this is life going on. And I'm trying to see, I'm looking at my few notes.
I feel this lives in the same category as Lilies of the Field, too. Movies that seem slightly saccharine or
and that's it. Like I kept waiting it for to become that, and like, but there's something. It's because her Elizabeth Hartman's character, she's innocent but not naive. Like she actually has had an incredibly difficult life, but because that's literally the only life she's known, she doesn't actually understand her trauma. Like she just, that's just life to her. Like to me, and this is probably, there's a scene where she just basically like tells him like, "Oh, I'm not a virgin." And he doesn't like what, and she goes like, "Oh yeah, what about a guy my mom brought over to that apartment one day raped me," and she just describes it so matter of factly, and you see like sort of her vision of what happened, and then it cuts to Poitier, and that's the moment where he's like, "I have to save this girl." Like she's describing a rape as if it's nothing, as if it's just a part of life. And it's just like, oh, that's just how I lost my virginity. And like the look on his face, like that's the moment I truly fell in love with this movie.
I'm going to take all the emotion out of the room now. Because for my highest letterboxed shame, which is what I kind of do. I look at the letterboxed list, and what is the first one on that list that I haven't seen? And that movie is Jean-Luc Godard's Alphaville.
C'était ma première nuit à Alphaville, mais il me semblait déjà qu'une longue suite de siècles l'avait précédé. Pourquoi les gens ont l'air tristes et sombres?
Vous posez trop de questions, Monsieur Jones.
Quelque chose ne tournait pas rond dans la capitale de cette galaxie. Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont fait? Ils ont été condamnés.
I am not a blind JLG aficionado. I am also not one of those people that just shits on everything he does because he's Jean-Luc Godard.
I'm one of those people.
Yeah. I went in with open arms to Alphaville, and I was not disappointed by it. It's going to sound weird after I talk about it.
I'll just add here, I couldn't watch this because I know for a fact I've seen it because I took a Godard class in film school. So my hate is not coming from like, you know, a toe dip. Like I didn't watch Breathless and go, oh, I hate Jean-Luc Godard. Like I've seen the movies. I saw Alphaville, but I literally have no memory of it. Mm-hmm. Like I know for a fact I've seen it. I can't tell you a single thing that happens in it. So that's all I'll be saying now. Go on, James.
Yeah, and I can see why you wouldn't remember anything happening because there's really not much. So let's dive in here. This is Jean-Luc Godard doing both film noir and science fiction, but not really doing either. Following down this thread, it's Jean-Luc Godard's Blade Runner without any actual iconography associated with either genre, other than the main character's trench coat. You could lump into like a hard-boiled detective. And this gets even more convoluted because he's not actually a detective per se. He's more like a spy. An intergalactic spy, but a spy nonetheless. And Eddie Constantine plays a character named Lemmy Caution. No matter how many times they said it, I couldn't get used to it. And he's sent to Alphaville to, I guess, dispatch Professor Von Braun, who is the creator of the evil computer that governs all of Alphaville.
Quel est votre nom? Ivan Johnson. Où êtes-vous né? À Nueva York. Quel âge avez-vous?
And along the way, he kind of falls for the professor's daughter, played by Anna Karina, who's by far the most interesting element in the film. Eddie Constantine does nothing for me. I've seen him elsewhere in supporting roles. I couldn't tell you where. He was a familiar face, but he's got zero charisma, and I have to believe he's a Jean-Luc Godard stand-in, and that's interesting because the whole movie is about the absence of poetry and the absence of nuance and creativity. The world has eliminated all of those things in favor of cold, calculated science. So, yes, you've got what's supposed to be a hard-boiled detective and something that resembles a dangerous dame, and intergalactic secret agent makes mention of space traveling in his Ford Galaxy. And no, apparently that joke wasn't too on the nose, because it really seems like he enjoys the joke. It's not an easy movie to get close to or really enjoy because it's all ideas and it's all very Godardian, and I mean that in all the best ways and the worst ways. There's some really interesting scenes and ideas, like the one where they're executing people who have done illogical things in a pool. They put them on the diving board. They are shot from these like rows of machine gunners. They fall into the pool, and then they are hauled out by teams of synchronized swimmers. And I mentioned how Constantine is not especially likable. And I think, again, that has to be part of the point. But he's also borrowing all these ideas from Orwell, and there's some elements that are very 1984. And what I kind of find most interesting is looking at it from our particular moment, because not only have we rejected beauty in poetry or nuance, we've also rejected science. So not only was Godard right, he was also totally wrong about science being the thing that kills us, because it's also anti-science and anti-poetry that's killing us. It's everything that's killing us. And as much as I didn't say that I would, I want to go, I'm not going to go back to this movie anytime soon. I did find it engaging enough and interesting enough, and playing with the ideas in this sandbox that Godard's created. It's, it is exactly kind of what I anticipated when I didn't want to watch it all those years that I've not watched Alphaville. But it's also at the same time somehow better than all the things I've said. It's hard to explain. If you're a Godard fan, I would watch it. If you're not, don't. It's pretty simple.
Okay, so for our next category, we basically just pulled one out of our butt because we just had some movies we wanted to talk about, but we couldn't justify any of the other categories. So we came up with what I came up with was high-low. So these were two movies that have like similar themes or something in common, but one is sort of like the high version and one is sort of the low version. And for me, I went with two different movies made in 1965 that about killers inspired by or possessed by the Marquis de Sade. I find these concepts sort of automatically amusing because I love this idea of like sort of the idea of de Sade being this supernatural evil, like a kind of like a dark sorcerer of sadism, when like if you've actually ever met someone into like BDSM or that sort of thing, they're just basically nerds. Like it's not a it's not like a dark evil thing. Like I know people who actually go to quote unquote dungeons, and I always say like it's LARPing with boners. Like it's live action role playing.
I was gonna go there, but carry on.
But that's why I find this idea, like especially like from this era, this like sort of like this idea of attaching mysticism and like Satanism and evil intent to de Sade and his work. So the first movie is The Skull, which is a Freddie Francis Amicus movie with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
It's a new height in fright.
Doctor, what have animals to do with this?
The man's jugular vein was bitten, clean through.
Never before such diabolic evil as the skull.
In it, Christopher Lee plays this sort of author who's fascinated with stories of the supernatural, and he's always buying these trinkets from Patrick Wymark of different things. And Wymark finally has like, I've got the ultimate like thing for you. But I need you to take it quickly off my hands quickly. So he kind of gives him a deal, and it's the skull of the Marquis de Sade, and Cushing is doing like research on like sort of Desaad, but also sort of on like I think he wants the skull for scientific research purposes. And so, of course, as the movie goes on, he starts becoming overtaken and possessed by the skull, and he becomes responsible for a series of murders. It's funny. It's funny to call this the high version because it's really just sort of like what you would expect from a non-anthology Amicus horror movie of this period. It's sort of a mixture of just sort of fun gothic camp with like a little bit of like almost like Amicus films almost always feel kind of like kids movies to me at the same time as they are horror movies, and it definitely has that feel. But yeah, if you want something for another dose of Cushing and Lee together, it is worth a watch. And the other Marquis de Sade movie I watched, although reading up on it, I think it was only like Marquis de Sade in retrospect with like a couple of 80-yard lines thrown in, and that's The Bloody Pit of Horror, which stars former Mr. Jane Mansfield, Mickey Hargitay, as the Crimson Avenger, who is this acolyte of Desaad, who is killed for like having killed all these people as part of these sadistic rituals. And then hundreds of years later, we're back at his castle, and one of my favorite tropes, a group of photographers and models come to this what they think is an abandoned castle for a photo shoot. And it turns out it isn't abandoned, that there's an actor living there who is sort of convinced that he's the reincarnation of the Crimson Avenger, and basically it becomes this giallo slasher film after that, with them getting killed in various ways, in various torture sequence style ways as they're doing their photo shoots. And it's very, very trashy. The main reason why I wanted to watch it, beyond just sort of like the premise, was that I just watched Mariska Hargitay's documentary about her mom. And one of the takeaways from that movie was that Mickey Hargitay was a really great dad. And and I was going like, oh, like he was a really great dad. Was he an okay actor? And he really wasn't. He was terrible. He was basically like a bodybuilder who was hired to be a body, and that's as good as you're gonna get. So I can see why his film career didn't expand this. And Mario Bava, theme of the day, Hercules, and whatever the one that Jane Mansfield was in. I can't remember the full title. So those are my highs and lows.
I was a little unclear about your category, so what I did was just Ringo ! Which was 2 Ringo movies released the same year, directed by Duccio Tessari. Just kind of a high-low when you get into it. We'll get into it. So this is the 3rd time I've brought a Duccio Tessari film to the Cinema Shame table. I find that extraordinarily surprising, but then again, not at all. I've previously celebrated Tony Arzenta on the 1973 Shamedown, and I talked about Zorro on the Alain Delon Remember-a-thon.
Yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
And if I ever did a Bond Imposters episode, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang would be in there too. But that's not official. That's basically unofficial mention because I just cheated and mentioned it right now. I watched this one a very long time ago. So I just lifted the blurb I wrote in Letterboxd and I copied it into my notes. So here's what I wrote after watching A Pistol for Ringo in May of 2025. An extension / lift of the Man with No Name legend filtered through a Tessari POV as a low-budget, manic pixie farce with elements of Bugs Bunny, Home Alone, and Die Hard. And if you don't want to watch that movie...
I mean, I kind of want to watch that movie, and you know how I feel about Westerns. Yeah.
Fuck right off.
This is a story of the famed angel-faced mercenary of the West, Ringo.
get it back and save the hostages, you'll get 10%.
It's a matter of principle. Never enter into a deal for less than 30%.
You looking for Angel Face, is that right? Well, you found him, I reckon. 'Cause I'm Angel Face.
See how this one man, with nerves of steel, outwits and outmatches a whole implacable band of outlaws.
Giuliano Gemma, who was a staple in Italian genre, especially spaghetti westerns, and actually worked with a lot of fairly big directors in supporting roles. You'd be surprised who he's worked for. He's in The Leopard. He's in at least one of Argento's movies. Blanking on which one at the moment, but he's around. He's a dude. He plays a, I mean, I call him disenfranchised mercenary because he's just aloof. Yeah. And he's hired to get in tight with a gang of outlaws who are driving the local law enforcement crazy. But he's not wild about the outlaws. He's not wild about the law enforcement. Really, he doesn't care about anybody, but he'll take the money. It's one of those deep cover operations where he's embedded into the group. But, you know, low budget spaghetti western style. So, which means that this aloof mercenary kind of sits around for the first 45 minutes and kind of sneers like he's better than everybody. It's an interesting setup because it takes that long for him to actually do anything. He doesn't care. It just doesn't. And that's kind of charming taken to this degree. He doesn't want to help anyone. But again, if the price is right, he'll pitch it in a little bit.
Yeah.
And his favorite phrase is that it's a matter of principle. And even when he's eventually embedded in the gang, he's still not really working for anybody. He's taking a police paycheck, but he's still just, you know, in it. Every moment is for him. And to this end, the standout scene that I remember is he's kind of found out, and the bad guy has tied him up in a chair and held him at gunpoint, but he's still negotiating the terms of the cut from the loot he's about to take in this operation. He plays the role like he's the smartest person in the room by 2 or 3 steps, and he's incredibly charming. I don't want to compare him to a low rent Allan, but that's the vibe that all of these characters are trying to hit. There's the action set pieces are really live action cartoons. He even uses some kung fu moves at one point, which even that doesn't seem out of place in this movie because anything starts to happen and it just doesn't matter. Some of the stunts look really dangerous, and if you think about what kind of budget they were using, it's almost pure stupidity. There's a scene where he jumps out of a high window onto a horse, and there's no cuts. Like, what are you doing? There's a scene where he runs through a wall and into a whole flock of chickens. It's like there's no way this was good for anybody involved. But it's a fun, like, super fun spaghetti western that Duccio Cesare has some movies that kind of don't seem like they should be real, like something that is actually made, and this is one of them. And now, that said, Duccio Cesare released a second Ringo movie in the same year. And this one only has Ringo attached to it because clearly the first one was somewhat of a success. And they were already working on another movie. It already starred all of the same people. So let's just call it The Return of Ringo. All right? And I say they're all the same. He has like a team that he worked with on both films. So they were clearly filmed back to back. And they're not the same characters. Even Ringo is totally different, but they just called him the same thing.
Yeah.
This is a reimagining of Homer's Odyssey. He's coming back from the Civil War to find that his land has been destroyed, and his wife has been kidnapped by a local warlord. So Ringo goes undercover again, but he's a florist's assistant. And he bides his time hanging around the complex and waiting for his moment to exact revenge. And while he's doing this, he learns he has a daughter, and that complicates his revenge plot because he's now conflicted because originally he didn't know whether the wife was kidnapped or went willingly, and he's watching her, and she's kind of into it, but she thinks he's totally dead. It's a far more serious film than the other Ringo movie. And when you get into this, it's originally kind of a disappointment because you want more Bugs Bunny spaghetti western action, and it's definitely not that. So once you get once you get over that, it's a really effective film. And I will say that Ennio Morricone wrote the score for both films, but in the first one, it's filled with a lot of silly Mickey Mousing and kind of some of those Morricone scores that are really just feel like regurgitation. Like, it's not very interesting.
Yeah.
This one has some really nice dramatic cues to it, and it's a nice compliment to the film. It's a really nice score. As I said, the film overall is like a competent movie, and it has some nice use of color considering how the flowers are used throughout the film. And it's more of a melodrama mixed with spaghetti western silliness. I mean, it can't help itself but creep in. But I recommend both films. I would give the edge to the first one because, as I said, it's spaghetti western, Die Hard, Home Alone, and Bugs Bunny.
The only issue is that
it's a western.
Not the western, but it makes me think. That description makes me think of a really bad movie, which is Hal Needham's The Villain.
Oh no!
It's that actually is a western that is specifically supposed to be like a Looney Tunes.
But see, that's movie. Not good. It's mildly entertaining. I would never call it good. This I think is actually a really well done action comedy.
Oh, okay.
Followed by a really well done western version of The Odyssey. On a really small budget. You have to have that expectations, man.
So now we're on to everybody. I think what it's everybody's favorite category.
What the what? What the what? The what? The what? What the what? What the
I
what?
watched a lot of what you would call beach party ripoffs of this movie, and when we get to our wild card, I'm not going to talk about them, but I will bring them up for a reason that'll make sense later. But one of the ones that I felt like I had to talk about, The Girls on the Beach, and it's one of those movies where you almost kind of want to you want to see a documentary about the making of it, because when you think about it, it actually is pretty wild, because the main attraction of it from a music standpoint is it features several performances by the Beach Boys, who actually play themselves in the movie and supply it with its title song. But this is after A Hard Day's Night and the same year as Help. So you might be thinking like, oh, the Beach Boys are in the movie and they're playing themselves, so this is a movie about the Beach Boys. And you would be wrong, because it's actually about a sorority whose den mother has given away this money they need to pay off the mortgage, because she's such an easy touch that she's basically just like donated it to everyone who needed it. So they don't have her arrested. Instead, they decide it's one of those things where, well, we have 2 weeks, we'll raise the $10,000 that we need, and they split up, and they do what one sexy girl seduces a nerd to help him try and invent something for this prize, and they get a $10,000 prize, and they come up with these. One enters a bikini contest to get like a modeling contract, which they hope will get them the money. But then what eventually happens is that these horny dudes try to mac on them, and what they do is they fake a phone call to the Beatles, and so the girls become convinced that they have scored the Beatles coming to America to play a benefit to raise money for their sorority. And so what you have are the Beach Boys in a movie about girls who are really excited about seeing the Beatles. And sort of the thing that boggles the mind about, there's so much, it's a movie that refuses to have a single foot in human logic or anything, because they plan to have this concert at the same venue where we see the Beach Boys play, which can hold maybe 200 people. And then at the ticket price they're selling, they would have to sell 5,000 tickets to raise the $10,000. But they would also have to fit 5,000 people in a venue that can only hold 200. But then, of course, the Beatles don't show up, and the girls improvise by dressing up as the Beatles and singing a Beatles-inspired song. And somehow this raises the money they needed, even though there are still only 200 people in the thing, and they have to refund all of the money they got for ripping people off for not booking the Beatles. So yeah, it's a very strange movie, but also really entertaining, and it has some really good Beach Boys songs in it. I can't remember there was one woman in there, if there's at least one actress who I've never seen before that makes me go, oh, I want to see more of her movies. It's one of those ones. I can't remember her name was, but I'll look it up again. And I will watch more of her movies, because definitely made me go want to pay more attention to her.
I don't really understand the concept of that film. I don't think I'm alone here.
They need to raise money so their dead mother doesn't go to jail, and so they can save their sorority. And so they fake they book what they think is a real Beatles concert, but then it turns out at the last minute that the Beatles were never going to come. So they fake a Beatles concert. It's a wild success, and somehow the Beach Boys are also in this movie.
That's the component. I just needed somehow the Beach Boys are in this movie.
I just want to see a movie about the Beach Boys finding out, oh yeah, you're going to be in this big Hollywood movie about people who want to see the Beatles.
It's yeah. Okay. My movie is not that. I'll just preface it with this line, and then we'll go from there. This is Kitchen Sink Czech New Wave by way of Yugoslavia. It doesn't star the Beach Boys or the Beatles. This is Man Is Not a Bird by Dusan Makavejev.
Devojka jedna u Pirotu polude za jednim mladićem. Ne može da živi bez njega uopšte. Roditelji ne dozvoljavaju da se ona viđa sa njime, jer mladić ne odgovara njihovoj familiji i zamoli su me ako nešto mogu da učinim da pomognem. Ja sam je upitao, ona je dala, hipnotisao sam je i pitao zbog čega Juliet.
Sweet Movie and WR Mysteries of the Organism. So I had expectations going into this movie, and it qualifies as the what, because if you've seen Sweet Movie, you're expecting a certain kind of film. And to find out that I got, as I said, Kitchen Sink Czech New Wave, I was a little surprised. And I learned that this is actually called...
So the what of your what is that there is no what.
Yeah, basically. I've also have a teaching moment in that I did not know that this particular subgenre was called Black Wave. Black Wave was a movement from Yugoslavia that criticized Yugoslavian society and its socialist tendencies. It was particularly critical of government officials and the espoused idea that post-war Yugoslavia had flourished. And that is the More You Know segment from my What the What.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm talking about the kitchen sink idea. I'm thinking of the industrial communities that are depicted in the English films of the 60s. This is the like Eastern European version of that, and it's a beautiful film. It's about we'll call it a doomed love affair between an aged mining engineer who looks like he's in his 50s and his landlord's daughter, Rika. And she's the one that approaches him. I know that you can make that statement. It's okay, that's creepy, but it's not creepy because she's looking for any way to sort of take control of her own life. She's under the control of her father. She's under control of the society, of expectations. Like, she's not allowed to do anything that's not basically for the patriarchy or society at large. So she sees this guy who's beaten down by the system, and she sees like something that she can do for herself and only herself. But then again, this movie also has a fascination with hypnotism and dances off into other subplots that vaguely inform ideas about the totalitarian society that he's criticizing and the male control of women. It's a really interesting film, and I'm talking about how really beautiful it's shot. He's sort of oversaturating a lot of the scenes, and there's one scene in particular, and I think if I remember correctly, like if you go to the shot that's the backdrop on the letterbox, it's this scene where the couple is laying underneath a black bearskin rug, and it's oversaturated, so they're super white, and the really shaggy like bear hair is sort of all over the place, and it's this juxtaposition of in contrast that gives the film a very unique texture. It's not a perfect film, but it's one of those like shaggy movies that feels like a first film made by someone that's kind of a genius, and you can't quite put your finger on some of the ways that it's working on you. I really recommend it to anyone like talking about the kitchen sink films and the Czech New Wave. It's got elements of both of those here, and if you like, what say Milos Forman did, Loves of a Blonde, like I can see threads, and Machiavelli is really looking to the French New Wave to find creative ways to deliver some of his more overt political messaging here. Even as it's not stodgy, it just kind of weaves its way through, and it's relatively short. But anyway, I definitely recommend it. It's What the What because it wasn't what I was expecting.
How would you feel if the Beach Boys were in
it? It wouldn't feel out of place, honestly, if the Beach Boys were kind of touring Yugoslavia and they just happened to be in town. It might really work. I mean, there was this whole thing with the hypnotist being sort of a local celebrity. The Beach Boys would fit in probably nicely as an opening act.
Good to know. So now we've gone to our I always say this is our most cowardly category because it's wild card. So it could be literally any movie we watched that we couldn't find another category for. And I'm doubling up again because, like I said, this year, I mean, for 1965, I watched a lot of movies that just felt like they had very similar themes. I watched, talking about all the teen movies I watched two different movies where the premise was basically it's Beach Party but in the snow. and that was Ski Party and Winter a Go-Go. And weirdly, as someone who loves the AIP movies, I actually thought the ripoff Winter a Go-Go was better than the actual AIP version with Frankie Avalon. So that's my one heresy. But the two I'm actually going to talk about are the two Agatha Christie movies I watched. Both of them were black and white British movies. But one, weirdly, is a comedy directed by Frank Tashlin. And the other is an adaptation of probably Agatha Christie's best story that really sort of chickens out with the ending in a way that you really can't.
Chicken, bok, bok at the end. Boy, does it.
Yeah, but so I watched The Alphabet Murders and 10 Little Indians.
Don't try to sneak up on Poirot, my friend. It could be dangerous. Oh, I know that normally, wherever Poirot goes, there is intrigue, excitement, murder. But not here, not today, not in London. No, I'm here actually simply to see my tailor. Now, if you'd been with me last week in Istanbul, well, but there we are. I'm sorry. Again, over. Please, do not follow Poirot. This is London. Nothing is going to happen. Goodbye.
It's not as good as it could have been, but the main issue I had with it is, why do you hire Frank Tashlin to direct your funny Hercule Poirot movie if you're going to make him film it in black and white? I'm sorry, you do not make Frank Tashlin, film in black and white.
That's a weird choice.
Yeah, no, he is a director who is truly... I know he made some black and white movies before he went into color, but once he went into color, he was as true to color as any director from that period. He does a lot of his, Frank Tashlin style visual gags. There's actually a really good one involving a mirror and two people talking. That works really well, but it does feel muted in a way because it is in black and white, and it just doesn't have that sort of that color and just sort of brashness that his other comedies had. In it, Tony Randall, who's actually really good. He's my favorite part of this. He plays Poirot, and it's he's after this killer who is killing people. Based on the alphabet, and his main suspect is a mysterious blonde woman played by Anita Ekberg, and he has to work with Robert Morley from Scotland Yard as they're trying to solve these murders. And Poirot at a certain point gets arrested, and it becomes this whole thing. But sort of the thing I kept focusing on, because it is why Anita Ekberg at this point was probably the most famous body in cinema. So it feels weird that she spends this entire movie dressed in this really voluminous outfit that seems specifically designed to hide her curves. And then you realize it's because at the climax there's this stunt that she has to do. And you realize because the stuntmen had to wear the same outfit, and it had to disguise the fact that it was a man doing the stunt. So it's the kind of movie where they hire a woman specifically for her body and then can't show her body because they're so attached to a stunt. And again, to me, that's sort of the kind of obviously filmmaking compromise that just really amuses me. And so it's a middling comedy, and the mystery is kind of fun, but I think it is worth a watch. 10 Little Indians I actually liked quite a bit more. It has a stellar cast. And especially it has Shirley Eaton, who is one of the few sort of blonde bombshells from this era who I really am truly fond of. I tend the blonde, that archetype is one that I don't usually get attached to, but I've loved her in everything she's done. But like I said earlier, if you know what's the alternate title, And Then There Were None, you know how it ends. And this movie does not end that way. It totally chickens the fuck out.
I gotta tell you, I was totally surprised. Like, that's not how that goes.
Well, and also it chickens out by basically, like, if I recall directly, I did read the book when I was back in high school, is that everyone is actually guilty. Whereas in this case, they make case like, oh no, the two people who should die, who don't die, they're actually not really guilty.
We created protagonists by making them like the mistaken criminals.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I didn't really do the things you said I did, so that means I can survive the story.
And it's actually funny that it is as good as it is, because it was produced by Harry Allan Towers, who was like a pretty notorious like European-based British like exploitation movie director, and like you could tell like I think he remade it like 2 more times. I'm not sure if he did the 1974 one with Oliver Reed, but he definitely did the 1980s one with Frank Stallone. So it is funny that he kept returning to this property.
Oh, I mean, the Agatha Christie stuff you can keep bringing back, and I was surprised that it was, if I hadn't like known the story and had expectations, and this would have been a solid thriller. Like, I wouldn't have had quibbles, but because I know the story so well and it's really good as it is. You just kind of question. I mean, I get it when you're, we've all seen the movies where, well, we need a happy ending. Like, make it this, but with a happy ending. And that's like, you imagine that scene taking place where you're like, hey, I bought the Agatha Christie book and then there were none for production, but let's give it a happy ending.
Happy ending. Let's take the most famous thing about this novel, and that's the thing we'll change.
And we even changed the title, too.
Yeah.
To reference a thing that happens in the story, so it won't be the real thing. Yeah. And it's funny because if you go, like, I did watch it for this episode.
Yeah.
And I glanced at the Letterboxd after watching it, and you can tell the people who are like, what the fuck? Because there's a lot of like 1 and 1.5 star ratings that were just not willing to consider an alternative ending. But meanwhile, I was like, hey, this is shot pretty well. I don't mind the changes. It's just not as good a story.
It has a bunch of my favorite British character actors along with Shirley Eaton. Like, I'm not like, if Dennis Price is in it, I'm at least going to like the Dennis Price scenes. Like, that's going to be true of any movie.
And Hugh O'Brien, the male star, is like a bargain basement about 12 other guys you'd rather see, but even he's like fine.
Yeah.
He's like got like the look enough to be but
you can see them justifying the change by going like, Hugh O'Brien is too likable to play a murderer.
Oh, see, this was fun. So I started off kind of making this. There was a few really big movies made by really big directors that I hadn't seen. And I went about fixing that for this episode. And just to go back through a few names, I watched a Kurosawa, a William Wyler, a Louis Malle, an Arthur Penn, a Vicente Minnelli, a Richard Lester, and for the longest time I had Redbeard from Akira Kurosawa penciled into this slot. And I removed it not because I didn't really like it, but I watched it a very long time ago. It is very long, and I didn't feel like I had anything particularly interesting to say about it. It sort of feels like the origin for ER, in many ways, just
Yeah.
set in rural Japan. Like, it's got that kind of like drama, procedural aspect to it, and I enjoyed it. But I don't watch Akira Kurosawa thinking I want a medical drama, you know?
Yeah.
So I went to the one that really truly felt like a cinema shame for me, and that was Juliet of the Spirits by Federico Fellini. And again, this is something similar to how I feel about Redbeard and Akira Kurosawa. I don't, when I go to watch a Fellini movie, and I love Fellini, I don't think about his color films as the go-to. And I think there are a lot of people who kind of feel like he fell off a cliff at this point, and Juliet of the Spirits is his first color film.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen 80% of the films, I'd say, in that Criterion box. So all of the important ones minus a few.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to give this its due, and I really liked it. I see some of the criticisms of the self-indulgence kind of taking hold. But let's put a pin in that thought, and we'll come back to it in just a second. So, as a little background, it was suggested that Fellini made this film because he wanted to make a movie for his wife. Or make a movie about his wife. I'm unclear about the nature, because what happens on film isn't that. Like, it's got a feminine perspective. I will give it that. That is about the best you can say about Fellini making a woman's film. Because this stars wife, Juliet Massina, who was sort of his muse. I mean, she stars in two of his most famous films, Nights of Cabiria and La Strada. And she has got, I've always thought this, but she's got one of the most cinematic faces I've ever seen. So this is sort of a middle-aged husband and wife. I can't remember what he does exactly, and I think that's part of the joke in the movie, is that she doesn't actually know what he does, but he's very busy and he leaves all the time and goes on these trips, and she starts to suspect that he's cheating on her. So she starts to sort of exert some of her freedoms that she may not have considered before, and this involves consulting mystics and communing with spirits and sort of tempting some sexual taboos and fetishes. But all of this is really just an excuse for Fellini to turn all of that into his parade of dream logic and escapism. It's really not necessarily about her story, because it like any Fellini movie, it goes on tangents and weaves, and you're struggling to make connections between imagery, and sometimes it clicks, and other times you're just going, well, that's Fellini, I don't know what to say. And this is certainly a few degrees removed from something like La Dolce Vita, which there's some logic to the dream, if that makes sense, beyond what we're getting here, which is sort of a circus sideshow stitched together by Massina's exploration. All of this leads to the sort of the point of the film, and I'll kind of skip over the runtime and just chalk it up to Fellini being Fellini. And like I attributed some of Godard's tendencies in Alphaville, it's what you sign up for. And there's a lot of interesting imagery, and some of it is personal, and we as viewers can only guess about what he really wants to say. And I think that's part of the charm of a film like this. Now, what made this film stand out for me is how conflicted I was about the end of the film. So after she goes on sort of this quest, I mean, there's many points where I'm like, okay, this is kind of a Virgil and Dante situation where she's got these guides leading her into different realms, like the spirituality and fetishism. With her neighbor has like a treetop swing where she can then like pull up all of her lovers into the treetop, and in her bedroom she's got a slide that leads right into the pool, and she kind of recoils at the thought of some of the stuff. So she never actually takes the step to indulge in these things that she's thinking about and exploring. In the end, the end of the movie, and again, we're pro spoiler here, and this is not going to detract from your appreciation of this film. At the end, she is seen walking out of her sort of like housing compound. They're off kind of in the woods, and she walks out the gate and just heads off into the forest. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how I'm supposed to take this moment, because on one hand you can see like Fellini's mind working like, oh, she's free. But you've watched Masina play this character throughout the entire film, and she's morose and disinterested and really plagued by the fact that she's been wronged by her husband and calling out his infidelity, and he still refuses to acknowledge it. I mean, her husband is most definitely Fellini trying to give her a mea culpa. Like, this is absolutely Fellini, who is distanced, who is not there when she needs him. So when she takes off and you've been living with this character, it's like, you don't feel any joy for her. You only see that she feels abandoned. And that has to be the interpretation. But you're also like, Fellini didn't intend that. That's Masina's performance that's coming out of the film. It's clear that Fellini thinks that this is a celebration of her awakenings. Like, he turned the entire last act basically into a carnival show. So when she leaves, and this may be one of those unintentional moments of beauty in cinema and art that happens organically. The filmmaker didn't intend it that way, but the collaboration between Fellini and Masina created something that was beyond what he could have wanted. And this like dual ending speaks so much about Fellini that it's just worth digging into, like, him as a person, how kind of single-minded and devoted to cinema he was, how big of an asshole he was to his wife, and then having this play out in this film where he thinks he's celebrating and she's like, no. That's not how this is gonna go. And I think that's really interesting. And on top of it, you get a whole Fellini party along the way.
Play it once, Sam. For all time's sake.
I don't know what you mean, Miss Elsa.
Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by.
Oh, I can't remember it, Miss Elsa. I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you.
Okay, well, technically, like I said earlier, my plan against Sam, I found out, was actually disqualified because technically it came out near the end of 1964, but also it was the second best movie I watched for this, but I didn't put it in my highest because it's not rated very high on any of the different formats we use. But I just thought it was really almost the opposite of what I had been led to believe. And funny, just talking about an Italian movie, this is a movie made by a very famous and iconic German Hungarian American filmmaker who is making a remake of an Italian movie based on an Italian play. And at the time, the thing that sort of made it really controversial is what was described as its vulgarity and its tastelessness. And what we know what they mean in retrospect is the fact that it is very much an Italian comedy with like white Americans in it. And I think that was what really made it so sort of like scandalous and offensive to critics when it came out. But I think today actually is really like almost daring in what it does and what it gets away with, especially seeing it in like a 1965 movie. And I'm talking about Billy Wilder's Kiss Me Stupid.
Remember Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot?
Who doesn't?
And Billy Wilder's The Apartment?
Great.
And Billy Wilder's Irma la Douce?
Hilarious. But what's he done lately? Kiss Me Stupid? You're kidding. What could it possibly be about?
Yeah, well, you see, it's like this. There's this famous nightclub singer with a one-track mind.
You made my life so glamorous. You can't blame me for feeling amorous. Ooh, now, is this a bit of terrific?
Last night she was banging on my door for 45 minutes. But I wouldn't let her out.
Then there's Polly the Pistol, the friendliest cocktail waitress in the Belly Button Cafe.
Hey, Polly, we're just wondering, how do you get that thing to stay in there?
Which we talked about Dean Martin in the movie that you didn't talk about, but in this, it's one of the earliest examples I can think of not only an actor playing a version of himself in a movie to the point where he's never called Dean Martin, but he's referred to as Dino, and they make references to his songs, and they're Dean Martin songs, so he's clearly playing himself. But unlike, say, another earlier example, Lucille Ball in Best Foot Forward, like Lucille Ball doesn't play an asshole version of Lucille Ball. But in Kiss Me Stupid, Dean Martin is playing a nightmare version of Dean Martin. So it's like almost like it's weird when I'm watching a 1965 Billy Wilder movie and go, did the people who made JCVD see this? Because it feels like that almost might have been an inspiration for it. But the actual plot, and it's a very Italian comedy plot. But so seeing it with this cast is kind of the fun, jarring part. And the story is that Dean Martin is Dean Martin, and he's hightailing it out of Vegas to get back to Los Angeles. But along the way, he gets like the highway is closed, so he has to turn into this small town that's in between them, and he is seen by two songwriters who live there, played by Ray Walston, and I can't remember the other actor, but he's a familiar face character actor, and they like Ray Walston is the town's local like piano teacher. That's how he makes his living, but they're trying to become like the next big songwriting duo. Although it is funny, like this movie was made in 1965 when that style of songwriting was literally like this is like making a disco movie in 1982. Like these songs were definitely like about to be obliterated out of pop culture existence. So that aspect of it is kind of funny. But basically the songwriters see Dean Martin and they think like, oh, we have to pitch him our songs, but he's like, I'm out of here, like after he gets his gas. So they basically they connive away, so he has to come back, and they like oh, you have to stay overnight in order for your car to be fixed. And they convince him to stay at Walston's place instead of the hotel. But the problem is that Walston is almost inexplicably, and he knows this, it's a plot point, married to the most gorgeous woman in town, who's played by Felicia Farr, and so he's like extremely jealous of any man who talks to her because he innately knows that she's out of his league, and so the joke is that he refuses to let like a famous movie star and come to his house and stay overnight. So what they do is, even though it's their anniversary, he deliberately gets into a fight with her, so she leaves and goes to her mother's house, while the other guy goes to the local rowdy house, quasi strip club, where he picks up like the local hooker and brings her back and has her pose as Ray Walston's wife, and together they create this Italian dinner and then get Dean Martin drunk, and then they start playing his songs. The idea is that Martin is going to have sex with Walston's wife, and that's going to be part of the deal that helps them get their songs over. But as the night goes on, Walston starts feeling a real affection for the hooker, who's played by Kim Novak. She's like really enjoying the domestic aspect of this because it's a part of her life that she doesn't have. In the meantime, his wife storms away from her mom because her mom is like a real jerk. And she ends up at sort of the quasi strip club, where she gets really drunk, and she ends up sleeping it off in the trailer that Kim Novak lives in. So Martin ends up in the back trailer with Walston's real wife. Both couples end up having sex together. His wife knows what happened because like Martin actually paid her, assuming she was like the hooker. Watching it today, like it plays really charming. And the thing that really made it work for me is that, as I mentioned before when we were talking about How to Murder Your Wife, is the reason why Jack Lemmon wasn't in this playing like one of the songwriters was because he was doing that movie. So we got Ray Walston. Actually, it was Peter Sellers first. But then Peter Sellers had a heart attack during filming, so they had to replace him with Ray Walston and reshoot everything with Ray Walston up to that point. And Walston really, to me, really makes the film sing. I think he ends up being a better lead than Lemmon would have been in the same role. But the thing that really impressed me with this, and actually kind of made me feel bad because she didn't really do much beyond this, is Felicia Farr, who became better known as Jack Lemmon's wife. When you're watching a movie with Kim Novak and you keep thinking, I hope they go back to Felicia Farr soon. Like, that's a pretty big compliment you could pay to an actress. And she's like really funny, really good. And yeah, so I just thought, this is one of my new favorite Wilders. I came to it with such low expectations, but it ended up being one of my favorites of his.
It's been a long time for me with this one, but I remember liking it. I also like Dean Martin in this role too. But I've also always liked Dean Martin being the Dean Martin caricature, like embracing it.
Well, it almost has like a darkness to it because it's playing to his image and his stereotypes. No, at a certain point you go like, Dino's a bad guy.
And now, with the first movie I watched for this episode, the 1965 Shamedown. This was a movie I pulled up because I'd owned it on a burn-on-demand DVD from God knows when. So I found it living on my Plex server, where I've put all of those things.
Yeah.
So I watched, for the first time, 1,000 Clowns, directed by Fred Coe.
Nick, in a moment, you're going to see a horrible thing.
What's that?
People going to work.
maladjusted.
Shape up. Odd mess.
Murray?
Murray.
Murray. Neighbors!
I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that something must be done about your garbage cans in the alley here. It is definitely second-rate garbage. Now, by next week, I want to see a better class of garbage. And let's snap it up!
Yes, sir, that's my baby.
I go back to, I watched this a long time ago. Let's go to my initial Letterboxd review, which was a simplistic, rose-colored proto-Fisher King cult of personality made engaging and colorful, even as the man iconoclastically dismisses false relations, institutions, doublespeak, thereby digging his way to itinerancy and a potential loss of child custody, which would utterly tear him apart. Which I thought was not a bad summary of 1,000 Clowns, if I'm being totally honest. What I found interesting digging into 1,000 Clowns after the fact, seeing as how it's a film that I barely knew, watching it, I mean, I understand why it doesn't have perhaps the audience that it deserves now. It's very much stage adaptation. It feels stage bound. But it is what I would consider a very good adaptation from the stage, while it does confine itself to two primary locations. There's also scenes in and around New York City that really utilizes some of the spectacle of that city. It tells the story of a nonconformist. He wrote for a children's show called Chuckles the Chipmunk, and he fed up with everything. He quit, and he has taken custody of his sister's son. The son writes a school essay about the benefits of unemployment insurance, which causes his school to investigate his living conditions with his uncle, who believes that there's nothing more noble than living by your own cult of personality. The social workers that are sent to investigate are Barbara Harris and William Daniels, who maybe is best known as the voice of Kit and Knight Rider.
There's no reason for increased volume. I am scanning your interrogatives quite satisfactorily.
We're too old for this, but it's Mr. Feeney from Boy Saves World. We have to accept that is how most people know him.
Maybe St. Elsewhere for some other people. Anyway. So this becomes sort of a war between the three of them, in that she starts to see the value of his point of view. And I should mention that the two social workers are in a relationship, and this totally fractures that. And Barbara Harris quits and becomes attached to unemployed writer played by Jason Robards. That our writer has to get a new job in order to maintain custody of his nephew. And the two of them have a really wonderful relationship. But what makes the film a little bit better than all of that is that you can also see why this environment is not necessarily beneficial. And the script really does a nice job of creating this relationship and making it not ideal, but in certain ways you can see both positive and negatives to this. Like having this creative spirit, indulging in art for art's sake, and not becoming a slave to corporate think and what everyone tells you need to do. Like, those are great ideas, but at the same time you still have to function within a society. And it becomes clear that Jason Robards is actually pretty incapable of functioning in that society. So you start to see the ugly side to this refusal to conform. I thought it was really funny. Robards is inhabiting the space, and some of what I like about the movie is directly because of its stage origins. Like, you can feel that energy through the Fred Coe's camera. And some of that I think has to do, and Fred Coe's an interesting figure because I didn't really know who he was until I started digging into this, and he was a prolific stage producer. Like, that was like his main claim to fame. For movies, he only has two directorial credits for this and a movie called Me, Natalie, which I did not know until I looked this up, but it doesn't have a particularly good reputation. But he also produced The Left-Handed Gun, which is a Paul Newman Western, and The Miracle Worker. But his biggest claim to fame is that he produced Broadway plays for Trip to Bountiful, Miracle Worker, Two for the Seesaw, All the Way Home, for this, 1,000 Clowns, Wait Until Dark, some of the more notable ones. He worked with Paddy Chayefsky and Gore Vidal. I guess you could say he's a big deal, but because we're in this world of cinema and he's got two directorial credits, he's not someone that I knew. And that's somewhat fair because it's definitely not a director's film. It really is about the script and the stage production. But I found it utterly charming, and
who's it written by again? I know it's the same guy who did I'm Not Rappaport, but I can't remember his name.
I wrote it down. It's written by Herb Gardner, who wrote the screenplay and made the adaptation.
I know he was very much of that world, like that sort of Nicholson May style, like sort of scene.
And the way the movie resolves this conflict is also, it's a fairly subtle moment. Robards goes back to his old employer to basically grovel to get his job back so that he can keep his nephew. But the nephew kind of criticizes the host because and he kind of breaks him down and tells him why his jokes are terrible and why all of this is terrible. And he's some of it is parroting the Robards character in the way that he's honest about these sorts of things, but at the same time it's coming from a legitimate place of criticism because he is terrible. The jokes are terrible. They are hacky. And once Robards realizes that Nick's the nephew has developed his own opinions and his own like sense of self, that's when he kind of relinquishes a little bit. Like, he's his own man now, and I don't need to care so much for him. I can still care by getting a job. And then the movie ends with him joining the workforce, but he's doing it in his own way. He's still maintaining some of that individuality and heading off to work in the sea of New Yorkers. It's a very sweet movie, but also very funny. Like,
the only reason why it's like the title has been in my head for like literally since I was a kid is one of those weird things. Like, it was literally a joke in an episode of Silver Spoons where Erin Gray is talking about how sometimes like you think a job is going to be cool, but then it turns out to be not. And she's like, I was really excited to get a job as an usher at a movie theater, but then I ended up seeing 1,000 clowns 1,000 times.
And it's funny that it could have enough to be well known enough to be a punchline in a joke in the 80s. From 1965, and then largely disappear entirely from our collective consciousness.
I'm guessing they just probably looked at the Leonard Maltin book and like, okay, we need a movie with a big number in it. That's also short. Like, it can't be like, The Million Eyes of Dr. Sumaru. Or like,
well, it's like it also had to be like known enough. It's like, oh, I remember that, being a thing at some point. Some of the cinematography is really well done, especially there's a couple scenes with Martin Balsam in what was a Chinese restaurant. I think the ways that it was made more cinematic with those extra steps to go out into New York, and there's some nice shots at the shipyard where he's wandering around and looking up at the massive boats, and he goes and waves people off as they're leaving on their voyages because he thinks that's just about the greatest thing you can do with your time. Oh, and interesting trivia tidbit. This is Judy Holliday's last screen credit. She wrote the theme song.
Oh.
1,000 clowns I'll bring you if I can make you laugh. A blue baboon and a red raccoon and a lavender giraffe.
Well, now I'm sad. Thanks.
She died before it was released.
Well, that's two actresses we will talk about this episode who committed suicide.
She died from breast cancer.
Oh, breast cancer. Oh, okay.
I remember the first time I saw Bells Are Ringing. It was the first time I'd seen her.
Yeah.
This is totally unrelated to 1965. I guess if she's saying she died in 65, we're celebrating Judy Holliday. But I was like, how is this person not the biggest star of the 60s? Like, I could not believe I had not seen her before. Then, of course, I went back and watched, pretty much everything I could get a hold of.
And the answer is truly terrible. The role that made her famous was Born
Yesterday.
Born Yesterday. And she had, like, basically made that play the biggest hit on Broadway. Like, she was the reason it was the biggest hit on Broadway. So, of course, when they bought the movie version, they didn't want her to be in it because they thought she was too fat. So she had to end up, like, losing 30 pounds to play the role where if she hadn't played that role on Broadway, there wouldn't be a movie. So that's Hollywood, folks.
And she was also accused of being a communist sympathizer, too. So she had that going for her as well.
That she had to pretend that she was really, like, a dumb blonde, even though she was invariably the smartest person in any room she was in.
Yeah.
For no reason at all, our 1965 Shamedown has come in to get justice for Judy Holliday.
Oh, hang on here. We can wrap it up by saying that her first job was an assistant switchboard operator for the Mercury Theater.
Okay. Oh, with Orson Welles. So
Orson Welles.
It's
coming back. That's the capper.
It's the snake eating its own tail.
In a pinch, but I'll take Wells to ring my bells. Rolling Stones got the bone to spin with Jones about to moan. Walking Finkel and we'll follow and land the feet. Joe and Luke, Gilliam, a silly one, and dashed around the girls' fans and gave your Quentin about the fun and the Tarantino, evil Cino, and big please. I do curtains to stop her and pull a temper and whip that shot. Ridley Scott, blue tie, but not on Spike Lee's yacht. Wearing white, but from L9. His whole wrist legs softly sang. His sense of looks to Mel Brooks. She was throwing rocks at Howard Hawks. Hiding in a hole with Cohen Joel, which was hot as a burner, thanks to Werner. Hot as a burner, thanks to Werner. Hot as a burner, thanks to Werner. Who Steaming Joe meant Truffaut had hit the hood of C.E.'s Wood, that well-known meanie who, like Bellini, thought absurd. Soderbergh's claimed that famous Harold Ramis was the greatest director in the history of cinema.
You have chosen wisely.